Thank you for listening to Shulchanaruchharav.com.
Not eating processed foods on Pesach. Many Yidden have the custom not to purchase any foods that have gone through production on Pesach, and everything they eat is homemade. They buy the raw materials from the stores, such as eggs, vegetables, fruits, nuts, but it's bought in the same state that it grew, without any processing having been done to it. If processing was done, they avoid purchasing it. This negates 99% of foods that are on the Pesach market. What is the reason behind this minhag? Who is to keep it, and must one do so, and what is the Lubavitch custom regarding it? So the general idea of avoiding processed foods as much as possible is widespread amongst Chabad Chassidim, as well as amongst other Chassidic groups and other sects of Jewry. Interestingly, we don't find this custom recorded in Pesachim or other Sfarim. Nonetheless, the reason behind the custom seems quite obvious, and that is it is based on a different custom that's brought down, not to eat by other people's homes on Pesach. Due to that, we are not aware of their level of stringency. Being that on Pesach, every family, every community has their own chumras, and we cherish them very much. Therefore, we try not to eat by other people's houses, even close relatives. And being that this is the case, processed foods is no different, as when you buy a processed food, in essence, you are eating on their table and relying on them. And certainly one can't compare the chumras one keeps at home to those kept in an industry that produces mass production of food. There is also a more serious reason behind why many avoid processed foods. Whenever foods are produced in mass production, it is very difficult to ascertain that no chametz has come into contact with the foods. There is a much greater suspicion that perhaps chametz has penetrated and infiltrated the production line, which involves hundreds of people of various backgrounds, including many goyim, dealing with the food, preparing it for you. Even the best hashkach in the world cannot adequately supervise so many people. As an experienced mashkiach, I can attest that in the kosher for Pesach Mahadran food production line I worked on, there were hundreds of Gentiles involved in the production of the food, and it was not possible to verify and make sure that they would all wash hands after they finished snacking or finished eating lunch, of which they ate bread. This is one mere example of how it's not possible for a hashgacha to take full control of what's going on, even in the kosher for Pesach food production. Now, although one can rely on various different aterim of Betul B'Shishin that applies before Pesach, perhaps as a chumrah people do not want to rely on this, or alternatively, we suspect it is not nullified, because the law of nullification only applies when the chametz has disintegrated. But if a krama chametz remains on the food, it's not considered nullified at all, and in halach it's considered a taruvis yavish belach. Whatever the case is, many avoid processed foods due to A, that they don't keep the stringencies that we keep when they process it, and B, there is strong reason of suspicion of infiltration of chametz, and we do not want to rely on nullification. While these are the reasons behind the custom, this does not mean everybody must do so. It is mutter min adin to rely on a good hashgacha that has done everything in their power to ensure that you have a chametz-free product. And the idea of avoiding processed foods is merely a chumrah. And therefore every family and every individual may decide for themselves how much and to what extent they want to keep this chumrah. If one person cannot go without coffee, he gets headaches, he may decide to drink coffee. Each person is to be given deliberation in this matter, and to the extent they want to keep it, to which products they want to extend it to, based on various justifications they may have. And it is not a global custom upon all individuals, even within the Hasidic sect. Thus, we find that even those who avoid processed foods, many purchase wine that's been processed because they don't have a choice. They're not able to make their own wine. Likewise, everybody buys matzahs from the bakery. There's nothing more processed with a greater chashash of chametz than matzah. But due to lack of choice, you buy it, and so on and so forth. People extend this to different foods, even though in general they avoid processed foods. We will mention a number of foods that have been discussed in terms of purchasing processed oil. Some Yidden even today are accustomed to not buy oil as they avoid all processed foods, and they use chicken fat known as schmaltz as their oil-based product for Pesach foods and for cooking. Nonetheless, the Rebbe in a letter writes that Anash, meaning Chassidic Chabad, were accustomed to use Natala margarine on Pesach. This was a congealed cottonseed oil that was processed by a company under a local Mahadran Ashkacha, and hence we see the Rebbe gave the stamp of approval on using a processed oil, which has a good Ashkacha. Seemingly, the reason for this is because, once again, it's like matzah and wine, that people are not able to produce their own oil, and to use chicken fat is very, very unhealthy. Regarding eating dairy, the Rebbe was accustomed to eat dairy products on Pesach that were made kosher for Pesach, as was told over by his secretaries, Rabbi Klein and Rabbi Groner. Regarding eating chocolate, there is no source that the Rebbe ate chocolate on Pesach, and all the secretaries say that they never heard of such a thing, of the Rebbe eating chocolate on Pesach, although during the regular year he ate sugarless bitter chocolate. Regarding sugar, this is a discussion of its own right, and we will now tackle our last question on this subject, and that is, from what time should one avoid eating processed foods, those who are accustomed to do so? When may they have their last kosher for Pesach bag of potato chips? Should they begin the custom only the night of Pesach, or should they begin it already from the time that we stop eating chametz? So being that this whole idea is a chumrah and one can choose when to begin, logic dictates that it should be began starting from the 5th hour of the day and Erev Pesach, when you stop eating chametz, as that's when there's an isser to eat chametz. And if we suspect that chametz infiltrated in a way of yavish belach, it will not be nullified even at this time. In terms of the suspicion, it makes no difference if it's Pesach night or it's past the 5th hour. And so responded Rabbi Groner, the secretary of the Rebbe, that the custom is to avoid eating processed foods starting from the 5th hour of the day. Nonetheless, many are lenient to eat it up until the nighttime, and each family is to follow their minhag.
Thank you for listening to Shulchanaruchharav.com. Our free services of making Torah knowledge available to the public depends on donors like you. Please help us continue our work through making even a small contribution at Shulchanaruchharav.com under the Daily Halacha Dedication section or in the subscription page. Also, check out our online courses and many sefarim available for purchase that will both enhance your Torah knowledge and help support our work.